So the title of the panel is Global Space Market, India's Competitive Advantage. India's space sector has long been recognized for achieving cost-effective missions and pushing the boundaries for innovation, from delivering affordable satellite manufacturing solutions to launching deep space exploration at a fraction of the cost of global counterparts. India is transitioning from a primarily government-led ecosystem to a vibrant public-private partnership model. Recent policy reforms like Space Policy of 2023 signal a monumental shift encouraging our private sector involvement and international collaborations. In this panel, we will be exploring what makes India's space ecosystem unique, how emerging startups are reshaping the business of satellites, and the regulatory environment required to grow and sustain this ecosystem. We will also delve how established telecom players leveraging India's advantage and bridging defense, civilian, and commercial applications. So it's like an extension of what we heard in the last panel. But before we start the real discussion, let's have some numbers on the table. The NASA 2023 budget had $25 billion. Not so friendly, not so for our neighbor, China. NASA has estimated they have a budget of around $10 billion. Then European Space Agency, again kind of a friend, they have a budget of around $7.5 billion. Our friend who is building temples for us, United Emirates, their budget is around $5.4 billion. And here we are. We have a budget of, for 1.4 billion people, 1.4 to max $2 billion. That's where we are. And let's get some fact check on the ground what we are doing. And with this, let me introduce my panel. We have with us today none other than Dr. Sudheer Kumar, who brings to us 2.5 decades of ISRO experience. Let me start with you, sir, on this note. From government monopoly to a public-private strategies, or synergies rather, how can India balance the legacy strength of ISRO with the agility of emerging startup segment, innovation, and reliable global space area? So let's start with you and understand what the reality is on the ground.
Thank you, Nishtha. Maybe audience are more, maybe I presume myself that people are sitting here to get motivated. Anyway, organizers are trying best. Fine, that's the reason I said. Yes, it's a good question. The many people, seniors from ISRO and Department of Space, they mentioned that the space domain is in inflection. The reason being, because one thing is, space has been always a dual kind of technology, and many watchers are there from outside. There is no defined policy and lines between the defense and the civilian domain, because we never picked up any enmity with anybody, because we want to be friendly with, that is why civil was dominating. Another important thing is, when global market is growing a lot, we could not anticipate our own strengths, stating that there is an ample possibility for the Indian industry or Indian space ecosystem to grow global, to reap the benefits. These are all some of the impediments what we have. One is dual kind of technologies, where some of the people used to ask me, for purchasing a model, do I have to take a clearance from ISRO? What nonsense. Purchasing a model. So such kind of fear complexion was there. So that is the reason probably the government has realized that there is an ample opportunity and constraints within the government because of several reasons. One is the capability of spending, manpower resources, growing big, reaching out to the market on their own as a forward marketing, that is push to market kind of thing, and commercially. So these are all the initial hiccups what government thought, and it has been announced the transformation or reforms to make the space sector also to the commercial front. Thanks to the government that they have opened it. And incidentally, from 2016, none other than Honorable Prime Minister, when he had called more than 64 ministries and put a target for them that how actually the space technology can be enabled for various ministries. Ministries means, see, this is the intention the government had to grow up. Now you are seeing the benefits because it is not over the night. It will happen. It takes some time because resilience would be there, then reforms will be there, followed by policies, followed by SOP, followed by, now all are in place now. In the meantime, rather than waiting for all those policies and SOPs to come, our space industries have done a tremendously good job, even than the MSMEs and corporates. This is the way it is going. I think we should encourage. The important thing is the technology. The crux of this issue now is the technologies are still remain with ISRO, major technologies. And economy of scales are not there. When industry always look at the profit, when economy scales are not there, they will definitely not venture into producing the items. Still dependency on the foreign resources for major subsystems of basically electronics. Materials and mechanical items, yes, quite we are capable indigenously. But control systems, avionics, then GNC, such kind of optics, optical electronics, such kind of systems, still we are depending on foreign sources. Probably the initiatives of military defense space coming up, that is expected to grow in demand wise. So all these startups and some MSMEs, and they will definitely jump into the production cycle. Unless otherwise we start producing ourselves and become competitive. Growing global is very difficult because you have to be competitive. Another part of this thing is capacity building, because we have a huge amount of very cheap qualified manpower resources. This is the advantage. Production cost is very low. Manpower availability is very high, because that is the reason European market is slowly coming to India for manufacturing setups. This we have to take advantage and leverage these particular advantages. We should have a holistic discussions with all major players in this thing, call it as Thales, call it as Saffron, call it as anybody, Lockheed Martin, such kind of people. They are showing lots of interest to start a collaboration for manufacturing subsystems. We should take that advantage. That we should look into that mode rather than I will develop everything in-house. So this could be a model. Yes, agreed that some leverage has to be taken place from the government, and especially ISPA kind of industry bodies who knows the crux of the game. They can play a big role in connecting the demand versus the need. Probably we have to wait and watch for some more time to reaching that inflection point.
So I think what sir, you are saying, there is a hope now in the entire ecosystem. We did not anticipate the global outsurge in the space, unfortunately, but we have not missed the bus, is the message from you. So on that note, Bharath, can I have you here? And quickly, Bharath represents Azista, and he is, with Azista, is trying to build the cost-effective satellites and all. So on this note, when what sir was saying, that we have these whole advantage of production cost, we have manpower advantage, and we have a competitive advantage. But globally, it's not easy. So what is your take on that?
First of all, thank you to IAMAI for inviting us to speak on this very passionate topics we work on every day. And coming to Nishtha's question on how do we fare in the global market, how do we compete, how do we stand out there, especially when it comes to doing subsystems or satellites. Yes, we do have an advantage when it comes to production. We are cost effective. We have great quality policies which were embedded due to decades of ISRO's push on building a local supplier capability. But this is not enough. to be a global player. What do we need is a design capability. We need to have design thinking in such a way that we design the product for, let's say, a reaction wheel or a star tracker, which can be also mass manufactured at the same time, maintaining the same quality, which can be modular. That means it can be modified with various levels of performance as per the customer requirements. A stackable performance is what we are looking at. So this is what is really required for the global market. And of course, there should be also, although the government of India is giving a lot of push on asking us to make in India, aim for exports and so on, but also this has to be reflected in policies like SCOMET, for example. We right now have already exported 25 different reaction wheels. We are working on orders for several hundreds right now. And for me, my production time is several weeks, but my SCOMET application license time is, let's say, 6 months. So, this is something we have to work around. How do we address this? Only when we address all the small nitty-gritties, that's when we actually become the global leaders. So one is design thinking. Second is design thinking for mass manufacturing. The third thing is, how we can resolve our in-house bureaucratic issues. So I believe this is the way forward.
Now, that's a very good direction to this panel, actually. Thank you so much, Bharath. On this note, before we touch upon the regulatory piece, though government is now opening up, of course, but to you, Vishal, who is representing Dhruva Space and who is actually managing end-to-end satellite missions and services, what do you feel that, where are we really at par? Are we really at par with our global competition at all? Or it's miles to go for us? Let's have it from you.
Challenging question.
Indeed.
Is this working? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Are we on par? It depends. It depends on which competition are we talking about. If we just dial back and see why things or why as a country we went into space, it was primarily to serve what's needed at the country. So in that sense, it's not necessarily about, hey, let's see what their requirements are, try to fulfill it. It was always about figuring out what we need. And that has so far been incredibly done by ISRO over the last many, many decades. And what's happening right now is our requirements have grown. And are we filling those gaps to begin with? And while we do that, how do we serve the rest of the world? As an agency, as a country, in terms of what the agency's been doing, they are definitely on par or more with respect to what the rest of the world's been doing. As a private industry, it has always been, to a major extent, an extension of the agency itself. A very rich vendor ecosystem that's already been developed, on which the startups and the MSMEs, we are greatly reliant on, or rather, I'll put it this way, let's not reinvent the wheel. It's been done before, so let's figure out what to do next, based on standing on the shoulders of giant and see what to do next. So in that sense, we're not necessarily, we don't necessarily have to look at whether I'm on par with the competition. We have the capability, we've done it before. It's pretty much borrowing from the words of my colleagues here, getting those scale of numbers, getting it done right, find those specific technologies which needs to be indigenized so that we can get the mass numbers, the economies of scale right. And that's where we are. And pretty much if you pick and choose and see all of these companies that's been doing, members of HISPA and the rest of the companies that have been doing things, they are in that direction. That's where we are. I think you did say we don't want to touch the regulatory part right now. So I'm not necessarily going to go into it a lot. The regulatory part has never been actually prohibitive. It's always been about regulating, right? So it's about trying to find that right fit of your tech, and cracking the code has always been the thing. It's new, possibly, since we're doing it for the first time, but it's not impossible. So that's where we are.
Wonderful. So I think, so the structure is looking like that we have a legacy of ISRO. We have a startup energy now, and for the audience, we have around 200 odd startups in this industry itself, which has mushroomed over last 2 or 3 years. And let me bring in, and then we will pivot this whole conversation, the real user voice here. And we have Mr. Vikram Rathore, who takes care of defense and PSUs, and he's representing telco, biggest telco of Airtel. So Vikram, this question to you. You have been, trying to take the voice of OneWeb to this part of the world, which is defense. So how are you experiencing this? Are they listening to you? Do you think this whole space as a service, as a plan, as a usage is really going to change the way our defense is going to work? And then we will pivot the entire discussion towards what is required to really deliver the best in the country.
Thanks, Nishtha. First of all, thank you so much. I guess you'll bear me out because you'll be the happiest person. You said you had a dream. Believe you me, the dream is coming true. Because she rightly mentioned that as a telco, I mean, if I have to give a small number, 95% of the India is covered mostly by the networks. You get signals, not that quality, but you get good signals. Then 5% of the population, and which is residing at 25% of the area, is still not been connected, and that is very, very tough. Because if you have to connect, you have to go through the radio, you have to go through fiber. But there are areas where vast hinterlands of Far East mountains, Rajasthan desert, Himalayas, you cannot. Now here, OneWeb comes in, and I'll be now talking absolutely on ground, and everybody would be very, very happy to hear this. That we have done, to answer your question, is the government listening? Yes, they are, because now, see, how government listens or how anybody listens when you show them the proof of concept. Had this discussion been happened 2 years back, things were different because everything was on the PPT. I mean, you know far better, right? We had many discussions. But then gradually when the things came up, then when the satellites started rolling up, when we gave them the equipment on ground and when they started, I mean, without naming because these are very sensitive and crucial locations, but there are areas where a very senior army officer said that, Vikram, Nishtha, there are areas where people still send letters. I mean, you'll be surprised. We are sitting, my daughter, I mean, when she plays a game and her download speed is not getting that, she calls me that, Dad, net nahi chal raha. I mean, I'm look at her and I'm surprised that there are people still sitting at some areas where they're still writing letters. And we ensured and we gave them, we did the trials, and today they are having a 90 Mbps of download. And the best part is the person is saying, sir, upload bahut kam hai. I mean, we were so happy also, but I guess then we realized that the person, when you give them, I mean, there are areas where they were never connected because you can't take the fiber out there. You can't give radio. You can't do anything. When the terminal was there, when they started using it, then they realized. And then it really went like a wildfire. Today, I guess, there's not a single day when we don't get calls from the spectrum of the government agencies, whether it is defense, whether it is Intel or other agencies as well, that we need. So I guess that paradigm shift, because today things are on ground. Yes, definitely there is, the last thing which we are expecting is the final spectrum. Yeah, that is the only thing which we are expecting. I don't know when that sign would be done. Once that sign is done, I mean, it will be a cakewalk, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and this is the point what Bharath you were making, that maybe the production takes only 6 weeks, not even 6 weeks, but the taking it out in the market takes 6 months, and where government really per se has to up their ante if we want to really compete in the global market. So now we have this whole first round of views about the user. We heard in the last panel that how many applications can just open up with just having a satellite in the space. So now, and very, I think somebody from the army only was saying that the future wars will be there now will be fought in the space, not on the earth. So we are looking at that era, and yes, maybe so we may be having our kids going and marrying there and want to settle there instead of Gurgaon or Bangalore. So taking back to you, sir, do you think ISRO feel left out right now?
Never. ISRO has got enough job. Even ISRO is not able to do the job what is expected out of ISRO because of various constraints. That's what. Today, if you say this is the model which government has mandated. When you are concentrating on scientific missions, your technology, your development, and your collaborations on the scientific front is more important to leverage the industry for commercialization, productionization. Because technology development, any kind of things, thanks to startups thanks to investors, I should say, you are getting enabled. Because the investor choices today, if you have to go to government and seek 100 crores fund, in government, it's a big exercise. Now investors, after the startups, I'll invest, please come up. And on the other hand, day I was listening to Jeff Bezos, he was telling in the USA, the risk capital is very easily available. The investors know that with a 10% success rate, they are pouring billions of money. So, but the same case is not with ISRO, because the technology development is long drawn process, capital intensive, labor intensive process, time consuming process, which obviously either academia or their research labs have to take place. Today you see docking mechanism, how precision way the docking has been done. It is not that yesterday it started. When that development technology has developed and give it to the commercialization, productionization, that's what he said, Vishal said, getting into the shoulders and leaping. So this is ISRO has always been what you call let us say forward thinking for developing technologies. To answer your question, ISRO looks for such kind of tie-ups with the industry, academia, startups to take these technologies to a different level so that productionization can happen and the economy will grow.
Just to go ahead a little on this very point. So with these kind of high-profile missions, whether it is Chandrayaan and what we are going to achieve, with Mangalyaan and everything, what are the international collaboration and what are the learnings which we can take to the world, wherein, we may want to know that whether NASA would want to learn something from us?
Yes, openly Dr. Somnath mentioned that NASA, Europe, American, this industry and NASA wanted the Chandrayaan-3 propulsion technology, GNS technology. So definitely these technologies are textbook launches, and Indian scientists have pioneered without even in the first attempt itself. Yes, technology development in most of the things are collaborative approach. Because you take Unix, you take the Japanese mission, even Chandrayaan-1, Chandrayaan-2, Chandrayaan-3, because these missions are very rare missions, and every year these such kind of missions will never grow. It is give and take kind of thing. Each and every friend, even our NISAR project. So give and take collaboration is only the way in the international community to give something and take something on a friend. We have to grow in that mode only. We will be giving our payloads to the other nations, so that this is collaborative approach to conserve the mission cost. And if a scientific data is available, it is not that India alone can do the research. The entire world can do the research on a collaborative way.
So essentially the point what we are summarizing here is that this industry particularly is a collaborative industry, and I think the world's only industry which can work with the full collaboration.
Perfectly, absolutely.
Right? So on this note, Bharath, I just want to share one number. In US, in FY 2023, there was $7.5 billion was put in by venture capitalists. VC's funding was only in US was $7.5 billion, and I'm not talking about even European and all. We know the numbers will be in more than $1 billion. Here, yes, we have got something from government few weeks back. Let's not quote that number here. But then, what do you think? How this whole cross-border collaboration and joint ventures? First, is it easy? If not, can government come in this whole thing for our 200 odd startups to grow? And what are the challenges?
When it comes to collaborations, whether domestic, foreign, international, whatever you call it, most important thing that we need to have with the partner is the sense and the rhythm. What do you want to achieve together? If those are not in sync, the outcome wouldn't be satisfactory. For example, in our own joint venture at Azista-BST, BST is a leader in small satellite manufacturing. They have been pioneers and innovators in Europe. They were, kind of, you know, they had this out-of-the-box thinking, not going with the traditional ESA way, but rather thinking in a small satellite way in a very futuristic manner. Now they needed a partner for mass manufacturing. They needed someone who can invest, who can take it forward, but also who comes with some sort of design thinking. Because back then, when we started planning in 2016, there were not so many assembly lines for satellites out there. We had to, plan one, design one, which can accommodate, whatever satellites there were, in our arsenal, and what we would be, mass manufacturing today, tomorrow, because technology changes, space technology changes immensely. It gets updated, upgraded, and customer requests also keep on changing. They're never constant. So, how do we plan for such a whole scale? And the only way that we were able to successfully set up this whole, factory is because we were able to think in the same way, or at least we had a same goal. So that's the most important thing out there. When it comes to investment, I see a lot of times, a lot of startups, media houses celebrating when startups get funding. I'm happy for those startups which got the funds, but one thing I'm sad about is the funds usually come from Americans. If you do a deep dive, some of the space startups might actually have majority of American shareholdership or European shareholdership. They're not truly essence in Indian. I'm sure the shares are way above 51%. What we require is Indian houses to start investing in Indian startups. This is the need of the hour. Only then we can truly be indigenous in whatever we make. Or else all Indian startups, even they would be developing all these great technologies, unfortunately they would be IP restricted or ITAR restricted, whatever, it may be European or American. The IP would not exist in India, which is a very big problem. The true indigenous essence should be that the intellectual property of the Indian startup should exist in India, and that can only happen when Indian investors step in.
Very good point, Bharath, and a very strong point, and clear, work for organization like ISPA we have here. So when we say, and here let's bring in the regulatory and the government piece in big picture. So still, what do you feel, Vishal, that do you think that our VCs, fraternity, the industry VCs we have in India are still shying away from this segment? And if yes, then why?
I think the simplest answer is no. We are seeing a lot of interest. In fact, we do have Indian investments majorly as Dhruva Space as an organization. But let's go a bit away from it. We've been seeing, not just us but the other companies as well, a lot of investments been going on. I think it's a question of the risk appetite and the fear. It's still there. It's going to take some time. Like it's that whole thing of, hey, I have the investment, but of course it's that traditional thinking of, okay, where's the heritage? Can I get what's called as the eponymous word, like the elusive word of what's space heritage and where's space heritage? And I would like to go back and say, how us and a good number of companies around here are addressing it along with ISRO. So because there was a very interesting question, like what have they been doing? The one interesting platform that came up is that PS4OP, which is the POEM platform, and so on and so forth. It's become a very cost-effective way where you don't need a lot of investment, but you get that heritage, and then you get the investor confidence, you get the market confidence to put things in here. But all of this is going to be validated. Hey, okay, I'm putting money into these companies. Where is the business? Right? So, and then it goes back to the ministries and the government, and where's the demand coming through? Or am I getting grants in the right amount of time? You said, okay, grants take a longer amount of time. There are newer procedures that say that, okay, we can get things faster. It always boils down to, do I rely on investor money, which comes faster, or I go wait for the government's money, which takes slightly longer? By the time my DPIIT certificate might expire, right? I will not be a startup anymore. So in that sense, it's warming up. It's more than warm. At least if we go away from the general scene of today's conference, at least in the closed space circle, so to speak, I think it's very hot. People are interested in it. But I am of the personal opinion that everybody should come to space and everything should be space. So when that happens, I think that's going to make things very interesting. So
No, I think that the dream sir has already shared, that 2060 is looking like that for everybody is going to be in space rather, because we are starting our morning and ending our day with the space sub-application. So maybe, you know, I'll just continue with you only here, that when we are saying VCs need some little more confidence and extra trust in the industry, here, do you still think that government is yet to start looking at us like that? Or, you know, yes, we have got this policy, but we are still baby in the cradle.
I think it's already happened. It's just growing at this point. I'll tell you why. So we started around 2012 when ISRO existed. ISRO as a HQ existed. You had other organizations working along with ISRO. And somewhere around 2019, 2020, over this, you know, before InSpace was set up, we had asked for, you know, support, technical support, non-technical support, and so on and so forth. ISRO's doors have always been open and welcome, irrespective of any of the, you know, promotional organizations being there. But what's really happened, you know, in terms of establishing InSpace and the rest of the organization has really put in the seriousness of the government, so to speak, and the DOS and the rest of the organizations. And then we have organizations like ISPA and so on and so forth have come up, you know, hey, we are here to do things. Either you take this bus, the bus is going to go. Now it's a question of whether the investor is going to come on board. And what we've been seeing is they are coming on board. So I wouldn't say that, okay, government's not done anything. Government has shown a huge interest. You know, I do not know if these are not signs. I don't know what are.
Very
These are the
good point.
strongest signs.
These are the
Yeah.
strongest signs. And what we discussed in the last panel, the plethora of applications, I think somewhere we need to structure these things and take it to government. And maybe here the government role will come in, wherein we have to reduce this whole thing of, and sir, we really need your help in that we are waiting, and Vikram is dying to connect its customer, not because he is in love with customer. I know he is in love, but he has to achieve his revenue or target. And he sees that OneWeb is the sheer good $1 million you know, orders he can bring in. So what do you feel, Vikram? Is it really frustrating that we are not able to launch commercially yet?
See, a very simple example. Airtel has almost 4 lakh towers. Still, we are not able to cover the entire country. You know, 648 satellites, I cover the entire country. So there's a big energy. I mean, why can't? I mean, this is something which is need of an hour. And genuinely speaking, we have seen in Ukraine what happened. Anything but, I mean, we don't have good neighbors. I mean, we have to live with them. I mean, even the third one has now gone berserk. So I mean, it's not our problem, but it is our problem now. So the problem is that, or the solution to this is that we need to be prepared. And sooner we come into that particular aspect and we understand that this is a need of an hour, whether a person needs to have a WhatsApp call with his family or you need to put a missile to somewhere, you need to have the network or the connectivity. And that's very, very crucial. I mean, we work with the government, we work with defense a lot. Sambhav is one big project which we have done, so we are very proud of that. And Army has taken a big leap. I mean, they've seen that, okay, how the partnership can work together. So gone are those days, like you take an example of DoD. AT&Ts of the world and Boeings of the world, they make certain products which are not even out for the public. It's only for the Department of Defense. So here, if we can also do that, the collaboration, because we are not private anymore. We are a national asset. So we have a submarine cables across the continents connected together. We have our networks connected together. And today, everything is digital. So I guess sooner or later the pen rolls, I mean, things should happen.
So I'll just stay on that point, what you mentioned about 4 lakh towers and all, and you just mentioned the Sambhav as a project. Would you like to little deep dive and elaborate in the sense that how these terrestrial networks are going to not, okay, so we always say it is complementing terrestrial network and satellite is complementing to terrestrial network. But how this whole connecting the unconnected you are seeing for the defense? Means these are the areas where you said that, okay, there will be wars or whatever it is. So it's more about connectivity, or it is about bringing them to the city? It's like that.
See, it's what I see is there are two aspects. One, definitely like border roads. Right now, what we are trying to do is, or the defense is trying to do, they are trying to make border tourism more successful. So the moment you get into border tourism, so it's a happy thing. But tomorrow we don't know what happens, I mean, on the other side of the border, right? If anything, so we have to be prepared in that way also. So when it comes to a connectivity, I always feel it is always complementing. Network, see, a mobility or a radio frequency cannot reach to everywhere. It cannot. It's impossible. Now, say for example, there are areas in Arunachal where even the sun doesn't come. I'm sure, sir, you would knowing better. Now, there you can't put a tower, you can't put anything. But you have a 4x4 space where you just lit up a small terminal and it's hooked down to the satellite, and you do the Wi-Fi and you can start the communication. Tomorrow, if you have to go on the run, right, the coverage what I was talking about, military today, you talk about China, just few days back we were reading, they have gone up to a level where they are building a complete array of networks wherein 100 gigabits, it's like an entire war machine going up. The people are not going, it's the robots which are going ahead.
Yeah.
And they'll all be connected. And how they'll be controlled? It will be controlled by the satellites. It will be controlled by the private 5Gs or the 6Gs of the world. So connectivity is always there. It will be there. It has to be there. Only thing is, there are areas where you cannot, no matter what you say. So there, the network of satellites come into picture. And I guess, I mean, I'm sure we have to go through it and have to get over it.
Yeah. So let's pivot this whole discussion now. So coming back to you, what do you see the long-term? Long-term means only 10 years. Because in today's time, there is no long-term beyond actually 5 years, let's say. But because it is a space industry, let's see 10 years. Do you really have a clear plan in your mind which you can share, that what is this long-term for this industry as far as us as a country and a nation is concerned?
See, if you see the global trends, how they are changing. One side, you take the launch vehicle front. Ariane 5 retired, Ariane 6 is not on. Proton, Atlas and all these things are getting out. And Russians are not so friendly to the other countries' users. Glenn, such kind of things, new ventures started, but Vega C is not even proven. So all the launch vehicles are in the verge of retirement, and new vehicles are not getting proven. That is one side of it. The second side of it is the Falcon is throwing the numbers like anything and giving a very tough competition to the launch vehicle front. Because I should say that even though with the 30 to 40% of the capacity, they are flying at throwaway prices. One side challenges for the community, and everybody has got their own markets. And I don't think that everybody would be looking for Falcon 9's opportunities, sacrificing their own launch vehicles. Because of that one is a postponement, backlogs are happening across the globe, which has got huge amount of market potential, especially for the countries like India, because there is no competition for PSLV across the globe. And small satellite launch vehicles, only Electron is proving. Firefly, then in space, such kind of things are yet to prove. Many countries, UK is having 2, Germany has 1 or 2, Australia has got 1 or 2, UK has got 1 or 2, but they are yet to prove. And facing the insurance and attracting the customers for a reliable launch vehicle is very difficult. Whereas SSLV is standing with 3 successive successful launches. If you can grab the market, but for that one, lot of cooperation is required, sitting together with ISRO, industry, productionization, keeping the cost very low, on par with the Falcon 9 standard. That is one front. If you take the satellites every day, especially these recent wars and geopolitical issues, has created some kind of panic situation across the nations to have their own sovereignty protection. Even if it's a small country, they wanted to just put some kind of ISR satellites, some alien satellites, some signal intelligence satellites. So this is creating lot of demand on the satellite front. Not very many industries are there in the, as Bharath was telling, come days back, there are no AIT facilities, there are no subsystems. Even subsystems are available with branded things, exorbitant cost. Exorbitant cost. Nobody can afford to purchase them and give it to. So this is where exactly, if you can design, or maybe you can pick up some technologies which are at TRL 3, 4 level, scale it up to TRL 9, 8 time, and started proving it. Definitely there is a huge market. GIS is one of the market. Earlier session was talking about 40,000 crores is the Indian geospatial market alone. And if you just take the smart countries like Singapore, then the European markets, they're growing on building information management and three-dimensional elevation modeling like anything. So there is a huge market available. Only thing is the policies, I do not know the policies, it is only just capacities. Indian industry should grow on collaboration. If still people are thinking that I will go independently, this I've been airing this particular view for last 5 years in all platforms. Indian industry, whether it is MSMEs or corporates or startups, should come together and they should be complementary to each other to the global market. So this is only the thing. I'm seeing lot of potential provided if you go in a very structured manner, with a strategic manner. If you are still, the typical Indian mentality is competition. Two brothers will fight each other for something. So this has to go away and complementary to each other. If Bharath is doing some gyros and something, if Vishal is doing some ground system network, if Airtel has a requirement of modems and other things, we should come together and build it complementary to each other and scale it up. Concentrate on only one item, but makes thousands of pieces out of it, rather than putting your fingers on many bowls. This kind of culture our people should adopt, rather than scaling it up. I will do satellites, I will do launch vehicles, I will do ground systems, I will do VAS, I will do GIS, I will do everything. This kind of mentality, if it goes away and come together and go to the government for the facilities, I think that would be the right approach in my opinion.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think you have indeed given us a structural thing that one key takeaway from last your statements are, one is the culture. I think we still in the nascent stage of building this culture, and this culture of collaboration within the industry first, right? And here the government has to really play a pivotal role. And here, Bharath, I would want you to tell us, what are the 3 things government can do now? Means if you can just give us 1, 2, 3, they have to do it. Whatever challenges you have faced so far in dealing with them, apart from, of course, clearing the tables, which we know, but what are the 3 things you would want to give as a message to any government official?
One is true indigenization. What do I mean by that? Many a time, most of the companies, when they want to comply for the indigenous content on various projects, whether MOD or for other RFPs, RFIs of the Government of India requirements, it's mostly screwdriver jobs. You know, I'm sorry to put it in a blunt way, but it's truly a screwdriver job, which can be done by any abled technician with a good supervisor. You know, this is not truly indigenous. We have, what is truly indigenous is having to develop the design and development capability. Of course, I understand that in the past, the industry has been more oriented towards production, which is fine. But today, you know, Vishal was saying that, you know, something about global requirement, India requirement. I want to say one statement. India's requirement is the global requirement. We are a global leader, and we want to be a global leader. We want to be a superpower. Then, of course, our requirement is a global requirement. If we work for ourselves, we are working for the global requirement in an indirect way. And one more thing is, you know, on the localization, on the indigenous content alone, you know, everyone says, can you indigenize that? Can you indigenize this? Fine, yes, I'll get in the scientists, engineers, I'll put up a lab, I'm going to do that. But where is the demand? You want to bring in local demand to drive in localization. I cannot localize, let's say, for any other prime. I would be localized because there is a hardcore requirement coming locally. Like, let it be the driver. Let it play all the dynamics of that. So these are two things. And the third part is, of course, pushing in more Indian investments into Indian startups, which I'm saying for the whole community, I think would be a beneficial thing, not only in a strategic way, but also in terms of, avoiding royalties, bureaucratic issues, and so on.
So what the 3 takeaways from you is indigenization,
Yes.
then there is localization and the Indian local investment. So
Yes.
that industry needs to grow.
Yes.
I think you have given a very beautiful direction in the sense that we should make for ourselves first. And then our requirement, then the world should look at us, okay, if India is using 1.4 billion people are getting tracked with like this, so why can't 400 million people in US can do that?
Exactly.
I think that's a beautiful point to end on this. Vishal, what about your take on this? Should we really compete globally or should we fix our home first?
I think I agree when he said that competition globally is going to happen, because something that we've been saying on stage for quite a long time is like, make in India for the world, make in India for the world. That's always been the case. Just to correct myself or maybe clarify myself from earlier, what I was trying to say is like, there is a whole bunch of things that there are requirements here that needs to be identified, but that shouldn't necessarily stop us from, going out and giving something, because we make better products. We do make better products, we do make good products, we do make competitive products. I did mention, we started about 12 years ago, in 2012. So some of us, when we had just finished our bachelor's, fortunately, we had the chance of working on small satellites during our bachelor's and so on. When we came out, there was no industry, all right? But that was not the shock of it, because we had always known it. So we went on to pursue a master's outside. And you go see there, you have your colleagues finish their masters, and there's already a company that's running, and probably these were the kids who made satellites 2 years before you, and they're running a whole bunch of things there. So what we really saw there was, hey, I have like 1.2 billion people back home, and we don't have a private industry. So which is kind of what drove one of our founders to come back and be like, hey, we should have something here, and we started Aerospace. That's always been the case. It's not necessarily that, hey, I need to go start something there so that I can give something back to the country, not just that, but also I can actually meet all of their requirements sitting back in Hyderabad, which has been the case. You don't necessarily need a generalized definition of what meets the global standards and so on and so forth, because we have our defined standards, we have our defined processes, we have our defined technologies. Sure, there are certain places where we lack. Question is like, when are we going to start working on it? So that's kind of what I meant by, there are gaps that we need to fill. While we do that, it doesn't mean that I do not go outside and sell things. So, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And maybe, last, word from you, Vikram, on this panel, maybe that you are a user of this space. And after listening to so many good comments from the R&D organizations like ISRO, the startups like Dhruva and Azista, you as a Airtel who has worked only in a very structured, SIM-based culture, do you think that world is going totally in different manner? The way telco used to work, telco has to also put something different now in the market, and then this whole collaboration and people like Vishal and Bharath can come into Airtel for that matter, and they are holding a session with all the Airtel employees, and do you think that kind of an interest Airtel employees can have in the future? Because that is also a future. If that is not happening, then how we will really leverage the energy what these startups bring in?
I completely agree to it. I guess just to answer one important point which you picked up, transformation. So we have seen it, 2G, 3G. So we were just gearing up for 3G, 4G came in. So we were the first ones to put down 3G. Now we're talking about 4G, then 5G came. And now discussions are going on for 6G. I don't know when that G will stop, but believe me, it is. And even today also, after 5G coming into picture, people are not happy because they want more, right? You just switch off your phone for a minute, you'll come to know. Or if a network doesn't come, you'll come to know. So we have seen that transformation journey. I completely agree that this journey, I mean, the world is moving very, very fast. You don't know what tomorrow is there for you. I mean, we have seen there are, because today you have, the powers are very different. You have a big country like China who's supporting a small country like Myanmar, I mean, for example. So he can give anything, everything, right? And he doesn't need to do anything. Or he just picks up something and just copy-pastes it. I mean, you don't know how the entire things are evolving. As an organization like Airtel, absolutely. This is the biggest step which we took, putting in a big amount of money in OneWeb, right? And that's now, today we are seeing the day of the light. 648 satellites up in the air, we are using it. Just waiting for, I'm sure the day the sign-off comes in, you will see a big transformation because people, as rightly mentioned by sir, people are ready, right? I mean, the government organization understand the potential, the power of these satellites. Today, I mean, definitely geo satellites were we have geo satellite for a long time, but LEO has given a big leap, low latency, high bandwidth, 100 Mbps. Who would have thought? We have done trials with Army. I mean, that's on a moving vehicle of 60 kilometers per hour at the mountains. And the bandwidth was around 40 Mbps, 40 to 60. Uploads were around 20. I mean, who can imagine that there are places where there's nothing and you're moving on a vehicle at 60 kilometers per hour and then you're having a VC. So things have changed. So people understand now that yes, LEO satellites will change the entire dynamics. The space will definitely change the dynamics. And startups, I guess, hats off to everybody. They understand the gravity. They understand that yes. And I guess we have a lot of programs which we are running. I mean, whether it is schools, whether it are the startups, we have. I'll give you one example of Satya Bharati School. There's one girl. I mean, she's in IIT now and doing some. I mean, so people, I mean, you give them platform, definitely they will rise.
Wonderful. I think very good points we have discussed in this panel, and I personally love the points which every panelist has made. I wish there were more audience, but I will open to audience. Yeah, I think you are already raising finger. What if you have a question? Yes.
Thank you. Actually, this is PG Raghavendra. I'm from Tamil Nadu. I'm an advisor to Tamil Nadu government also. So we are running a startup known as a Vision. We are working on environmental, like mainly for human-animal conflict. For simply, I'm telling like if I'm standing here in front of you, a wild elephant or leopard or cheetah is coming nearly 10 meters or 20 meters away, you have a guts to make it go away into the forest itself. Mainly, we are working on human-animal conflict. So we are making a product and we are making successfully, we are making away and making into the forest itself, that animal. We are scaring them with mild frequencies and making go away inside. But our main agenda is like, why they are coming out means mainly for the food and water body. So it is available outside the villages, so they are coming out. If we are planning with the government, like we want to make it food chain system and water bodies inside the forest itself. So then only the whole ecosystem will be completed, because they eat the pesticide food, they are making the forestry, and based on that pesticides, the environmental trees is growing up. So the roots are getting milder, and easily the ecosystem is being imbalanced. So we are working on that. So for that, making the ecosystem, we want a live satellite images to track the elephant or leopard or something. After detecting from our image and going into the forest, we want to track that. But till now in India, we can't find a proper company or any government sector to take a live satellite image. But other like NASA or any Google, they are ready to provide. But we, as SAARC told, like we want an indigenous product. This has been developed and patented in India, and we are working on central and state government award also. So we want indigenous, like government is ready to take over that one. Because without animal or anything, plants or forest, humans are not there.
So your question is there any company which
Yeah,
can do the live tracking? I think, sir, you
And
can
one
take
more
this
thing,
question.
one more thing to Bharath sir,
Yeah.
like as you told, in forest we are making some networking system. In Karnataka, some forest where we are working on South India. So in some forest there is an upload speed of 20 Mbps or more, but some places it's very little, and we want some other networks also getting it. So that
Ina,
also
you have a customer. So no, answering to this first thing. So which are the company means Sohara or who are those companies which can really help him?
Okay, see, these particular typical cases are specific because biodiversity is one of the GIS application. Using hyperspectral data, to some extent it is possible because it is a deep forest covered with vegetation. Hyperspectral also may not be of use. It is a combination of technologies. Maybe to some extent some kind of SAR or thermal. Thermal also will not be usable. IoT because it's a typical GIS application. Biodiversity is very one important aspect in the geospatial. It is something like the tagging, identifying that particular object, what it is, an animal or moving or something like that, and putting some kind of IoT devices in the forest. Definitely it is not a business case, because industries, why they are not coming forward for such kind of thing is, typically government release a tender, and tender you will say that this particular thing it will not match, and whatever the amount you expect is, resources are huge that will cost. If it comes as a grant of challenge, I suggest you, because the technology is available. Today, for a mango season, for a tree, how many mangoes are available for auctioning? So to that extent, the technology is available. Narcotics, if you take, if opium generation is there, to what extent they will be given some kind of license for producing some quantity of opium, and whether he is producing 5% extra, to that extent space technology, GIS technologies are being used. Tracking animal is a very typical GIS for biodiversity, and people are available. Only thing is you have to develop this particular technology as a use specific case. Many companies are there. Only thing is government wants on bidding process. Okay, it is a typical how you convert the capability into a business case.
Right.
Many companies are there.
Thank you. So just to conclude, I think the crux of today's discussion is India needs to find its own niche and play on its own strength to become a real power in a true sense, right? I think that's what we would like to end this panel, and I genuinely thanks from the bottom of my heart every panel of me here, and thank you so much for putting so much efforts for this panel. Really insightful. I wish really we had more listeners because there's some good points got discussed. So once again, thank you so much, and have a good day. And thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you organizers for having us. Appreciate all your hard work. So see you soon.